Today's guest is an author, lecturer and filmmaker. He's written 12 books including the Nephilim Trilogy, which made the CBA bestsellers list. He's investigated many a fascinating topic such as cattle mutilations, giants, elongated skulls and OOPARTs. A massive Koit welcome to L.A. Marzulli. Hi L.A. and welcome to KoitCast.
Well, great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, and on that basis I must say I've heard you many times down the years on like Coast to Coast and all the other programs, so it's an actual real honour for me to have you here, so thank you for coming.
Well, it's again, once the honour is all mine, and it's looking forward to it. Excellent.
Well, let's kick straight in, and actually on that basis, what kicked off your journey into what you investigate or look into?
You know, that's a really loaded question, and it's a very involved question. My whole life, and I realize that might sound absurd, but when I was 5 years old, I couldn't read, and a big Italian family. It was Sunday, and my relatives, my parents, my aunts and uncles, grandparents, were all at the big long table in the dining room, and you know they were eating and feasting and drinking and laughing and the whole thing. And I all the kids were in some other room, and so I got up and I took my grandfather's footstool and I dragged it out into the foyer. So the dining room was right off the foyer. And then I got my grandfather's big family Bible and I put that Bible on the footstool and I opened it. Now remember, I can't read. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I gave my first sermon. And at 5 years old, what I stated was, the title of it was, "What is the Truth?" What is the truth? This is coming out of the mouth of a 5-year-old.
Very profound for a 5-year-old, yeah.
And my parents and my aunts and uncles, everyone laughed. They thought it was the funniest thing. And I checked this with my parents and my aunts and uncles. The more they laughed, the more serious I got. That's 5 years old. So fast forward, I'm now 73. The last film in our ongoing UFO series, I don't have the graphics yet. This is number 7 and 8, which we just released on the Roswell series. But 9 and 10, guess what we entitled it? What is the Truth?
Excellent. And what is the truth?
It's like full circle. You know, we've done 10 films on the UFO phenomena, and the whole gamut. Everything from Close Encounters of the First, Second, Third Kind to the abductions, crop circles, cattle mutilations, what happened at Roswell. I mean, we did a deep dive on all this stuff. And so number 9 and 10 is What is the Truth? And that'll come out probably the end of April. But I was always interested in the arcane and the occult, in the off the beaten path. And at 13, when the Beatles came out, I was all in. By 15, 2 years after that, they had brought in Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And with that came this influx of Eastern mysticism, including the concept of reincarnation, all this stuff. Reincarnation is very foreign to those of us in the West. It's not in the Torah or it's never mentioned at all. You can't find it in the Judeo-Christian worldview. It's not there. This comes from Eastern mysticism. And the problem with it is it creates this caste system, which is what we saw in India, where you've got the Brahma up on top, somehow they're okay, and the untouchables on the bottom. And I've witnessed this firsthand, the segregation, or the karma. You must have done something wrong in a prior life. Well, the Christian Bible basically says you're born once and then judgment. And we know that you go back into antiquity, the early people like Adam and Eve and others after them, they were living 700, 800, 900 years. So I don't believe in reincarnation, but to move into, at 15, I embraced all of this, including reincarnation, including that UFOs were our space brothers. And by the time I was 19, 20, 21, I mean, I was full-blown New Age, full-blown, dialed in. And that was my paradigm. That was my belief system. I was in the ashram. I received knowledge from Guru Maharaji. I was My third eye was open. I heard divine voices. I had spirit guides. I mean, I went as pretty much as far as you can go. And then at 25, I got married. Shortly after that, I was divorced. And then I became agnostic till I was 30. Then I had a Paul on the road to Damascus experience, which changed my life completely. That's 44 years ago. I'm 73. I'll be 74 this December. So what was interesting about all that is I immediately went into sort of a monasterial type living situation. It was very monastic, not monasterial, monastic. Sorry. It was a very monastic 3 years from 30 to 33 was very, very monastic. Bible study, Bible study, Bible study. I met my wife. We got married. We were married. We were 7 months after we were dating, we were married. 3 months after we were dating, I asked her to marry me. So 3 years after that, we had our first child. 3 years after that, we had our second child. And we celebrate our 40th anniversary this year. So Peg and I have been together like 40 years. And, you know, there's ups and downs like every marriage. But after, from 1980 to 1990, I was a worship leader because I'm a professional musician. In fact, I just released a song on our YouTube channel. You should, you know.
I'm highly interested in music, so I will definitely look that up. I'm going to write it down now so I don't forget.
Just came out today. It's called "Take Another Look Around You." And I composed it, played all the instruments, and of course sang on it. It's a beautiful song. It's not what people. I would call it, you know, high art because that's really what it is. It's not 3-chord rock and roll. I mean, it's high art. But I digress. So from 1980 to 1990, it was, you know, redirecting my paradigm, lots of Bible study, lots of searching, marriage, children. And then at 1990, the Lord just kind of went, we're going to start changing things up. And he did. The book that changed everything was The Omega Conspiracy by Dr. I.D.E. Thomas. Because when I was reading the biblical narrative, from 80 to 90, when you get to something like Noah's flood, what are we looking at here? Why is the God of the Old Testament so maniacal, so on wiping everybody out? And I had no answers. Then you get to the Tower of Babel, basically the same thing. Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed, Abraham and the 5 kings. Finally, the mandate to destroy everybody in the promised land. You just sit there and you go, you know, Jesus, I get this guy. I don't know who he is. I'm not down and jiggy with it at all. So when I'm 40 years old, I find the book which changed my life. Let me see, where is it? The book absolutely changed my life. And it's The Omega Conspiracy by Dr. I.D.E. Thomas. And if I can't find it, I can't find it. Typical. Anyway, it's The Omega Conspiracy by Dr. I.D.E. Thomas. And what Dr. Thomas did was open up the scriptures, specifically the Genesis 6 narrative. It would be another 20 years before the Genesis 3:15 narrative would dovetail into that. Dr. I.D.E. Thomas talked about the Nephilim and what the Nephilim were, and how they were, how all that resulted in the flood. And he quotes the book of Enoch, and that book changed my life. And all of a sudden, I got it. And that led to the first 3 books that I've ever written. They were novels published by Zondervan, which is a subsidiary of HarperCollins. And, you know, since then, there's 13 and a half books and 30 films. So there's a corpus of work here that revolves around Dr. I.D.E. Thomas's work, the Nephilim, who the Nephilim were, the vestiges of the Nephilim, the elongated skulls that we see in the background right there. That book changed my life. And then years later, it would be Gary Stearman talking about Genesis 3:15, which is the gateway to the Bible. If we don't understand Genesis 3:15, we don't understand anything. We don't understand it. You'll never understand what's going on. But if you start with Genesis 3:15 and you realize that it's a seed war, it's the seed of the dragon, seed of a serpent against the seed of the woman. That's everything. That is absolutely the whole deal. That's the gateway.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to discuss that part because clearly that is the crux of everything. But before we get into that, because I think that's an amazing jumping off point, I want to say, obviously you've come from, was it a strict religious background or just a religious background?
I was a Catholic, so I mean, I was at mass. It was all in Latin back then, so I was really clueless. And there was a ceremony, and it seemed very mysterious. But at 13, I left the church. I mean, I didn't want anything to do with it. I was confirmed, and just to me, it was dead. There was nothing there, absolutely nothing. I mean, I used to take a statue of Jesus in my mother's house and fly it around the room and make fun. I mean, I was
Blasphemy.
yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. That's I just believed he was another ascended master.
Well, I think it's amazing when you have people that grow up in a religious upbringing that then decide, no, I want to be open to everything, and then you went on that journey and explored everything. I think that's the sign of a great researcher. You're willing to see everything.
Well, I not only look, it was Carlos Castaneda vision quests. It was peyote quests, not to get high, but to find God. It was LSD to find, open myself up, like I had heard.
Was that genuinely what you used that for?
Absolutely, all day long. That's what I was looking for. I was looking. See, what happened to me, I left this out. This is the turning point of my whole life. When I was 18, there was a girl. Her name was Michelle. And I was in love with Michelle, but I was also in love with this other woman called Jennifer, because Michelle was at a different school. She was 2 years younger than I was. She was 16. Jennifer was in the same class, high school that I was. And I was reading Jenny's letters and Michelle's letters one night while on LSD. And I have the Bible open with the book of Revelation, which I can't understand anything that I'm reading back then. Very difficult book, even if you're saved and born again and spirit filled. Very difficult book. And I go, if there's really a God, tell me which one I should be with. Now I'm higher than a kite. 2 hours later, my father comes in and he goes, Michelle's been hit by a car. She's dead.
Oh, no.
And that set me on a quest because this was visceral. This was my girlfriend from 16 to 18. She was 14 when we started dating. And there was a link, a real link there. And, links like that don't happen every day. They just don't. And that was taken from me. And that led me on the quest to find out what's the meaning of life. Who is God? Can we know him?
So here's the question to you. Yeah. Was it your asking of the question that nudged life in that different direction, or was it just the happenstance of that accident?
It was the happenstance. And here's sometimes when we tap into things like that using artificial means, the catapult, the LSD, we tap into things. And are we led? I don't have an answer for that on this side. I just don't. It was not a coincidence. It was life-changing. I did not go to her funeral. I couldn't bear myself to go to her funeral. I took off my high school ring, and that's in the casket. And then I went back to her gravesite, probably on the 30th, 40th anniversary. And that's when it really hit me that she was 16 when she was killed. And here my children were both grown and in their 20s. I mean, it was really very intense, very poignant, very emotional. I mean, I sobbed at the gravesite. And, I've let her go because you have to. You can't hold on to it. You just.
Well, it does benefit to hold on to anything, does it? Let it go is one of the most important tenets, I think.
You have to let it go. You have to give it over, give it to the Lord, and just let it go. I married to Peggy, and Peggy and I have been married 40 years. So that memory of Michelle will always have a special place, but Peggy's my wife. And, Michelle died when I was 18. It's a long time ago. So, yeah.
Yeah,
But
life is a strange thing, very much strange.
Life is fragile, unpredictable. It can change on a dime. And that's why, circling back, after I became a Christian 44 years ago, that's, I mean, it's a life-changing experience. And there's a saying I came up with years ago. If you think you know him, Jesus, if you think you know him, but you don't know him personally, then you don't know him. If you think you know him, but you don't know him, then you don't know him. And that's the kicker, because most people, oh yeah, Jesus, I got it. But they're clueless. They have no idea because it's a personal relationship. In that song that just came out today, at the end of it is Revelation chapter 2. And it basically says, if any man, will knock, essentially, here's my call, and opens the door to their heart, I will come in and sup with them, which is what's happened to me 44 years ago. Life-changing. And I'm not talking religion, I'm talking relationship. The first time when the Lord speaks to you, it's like, what? How is this happening? It's mind-boggling.
Can I ask you a question about this, right? Because I'm naive to this sort of stuff, because I don't have a relationship with whomever. When people say I have a relationship with Jesus or whatever, how does that work? Is it, I don't mean to be disrespectful, is it a one-sided talk in your brain? Is it, no. How does it work?
No, it's not. It's definitely not one-sided. It can work in a myriad of ways. Oftentimes, the Lord will speak through his word. In other words, sometimes you can sit down, open up a passage, and all of a sudden, bam, and he's talking to you. That's one way. Men and women are composed of spirit, soul, and body. Body, soul, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
We're three separate things. And so our spirits are dead until they're regenerated. Eastern mysticism seeks to regenerate the spirit, but it never does, in my opinion. It just never does.
So when you say a spirit's dead,
yeah,
like say I was born, are you saying at that point my spirit is dead?
Your spirit is not connected. My spirit wasn't connected. It's not connected. And we can try to do all sorts of things to reconnect that. LSD will try to reconnect the spirit.
I see where you're going now, yeah. So that you lost the connection to the radio station or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, meditation will seek to reconnect that, but it might for a period of time, but never does it really. If he says who he says he was, and this is, I always keep this here, this is the Shroud of Turin. Mm-hmm. This is what his face looks like. That's the burial cloth. And that artifact has been studied, from here to and back again. So when a person becomes born again, there's no ritual, there's no ceremony, there's no magic words, there's nothing, anything except you ask. You just basically, if it was my first mentor, Wayne Kendall, I'll imitate his voice. Very good, Marzulli. That's the way he would sound. And he would go, Marzulli, if it was any harder, no one would do it. And he's right. You just ask. And yet people can't do that. They just won't go up, and they start going up to the line, and they back away. I can't do this. And
can you give me an example? What you mean?
Two things. You ask Jesus into your heart. You say you believe in him that was sent. You believe he was the Son of God. You believe he died for our sins, and we confess our sins. That's it. That's the game. That's the whole deal. And I did it alone in my room here before the fire. 44 years ago, there was nobody around. There was nobody banging me on the head with the Bible. I was reading a book, and at the end of the book was a little prayer. It was by a man who's gone home with the Lord. It's called The Cult Explosion, David Hunt. And just a little prayer. And I just said, I read it, and I said, okay, that's far out. I don't know whether you're real or not, but this was my prayer, that if you are real, come into my life. That's all I said. A month later, boom, it was unbelievable. And that's 44 years ago. So when a person becomes born again and spirit-filled, their spirit is reconnected. And at that point, things begin to happen. He does talk to you, sometimes through dreams, sometimes through visions. Sometimes this is rare, but your eyes are wide open and you're seeing a different reality that shouldn't be there. And this stuff sounds like, maybe you need to go see a psychiatrist. Thank you very much. It's not. It's all very biblical. All of it's very biblical. And then at night, Sometimes he'll give me a word. I'll wake up. He'll give me a word. I'll just give you an example. Do you know what the word pusillanimous means?
No.
No, neither do I. So he wakes me up one morning and I hear pusillanimous. I keep a paper and a pencil or a pen right by my bedstand. It's on my bedstand. So when he gives me a word like this, I'm writing it down because I know when the morning comes, I'll never hear it. I won't remember it. So I write pusillanimous. Sure enough, I look it up. It means fearful. And I went, Lord, what do you mean by that? And then he began to show me just how fearful I was of things, of life, of different challenges. It was an education. Now that's one way he speaks to me.
Interesting. Can I just ask a question here that's going to sound like I'm disputing? I'm not.
You want, my friend.
My intellect's always about understanding. It's not about challenging. So can I be devil's advocate and say, is it that people become more connected to spirit naturally, i.e. mediumistic, rather than connected to a religious deity or something? Does that make sense? No,
I'm definitely not mediumistic.
Okay.
None of this happened before I accepted him as my Lord and Savior. And today is Good Friday, so we're celebrating what happened at the cross, and this goes back to Genesis 3:15, like I mentioned earlier, the gateway to the Bible. That was checkmate. That is the most profound event in the entire universe. It's beyond cosmic, and here's why. In Genesis 3:15, to circle back to that, bring everything together. In Genesis 3:15, you've got Adam and Eve in the garden. They've just sided with the dragon. You've got the dragon over here, and you've got the pre-incarnate Christ. Here come the balloons.
What's all that about?
right on cue. Pre-incarnate Christ. All the balloons come up. So they're all in the garden, and Jesus says to the dragon, to Satan, "Your seed, your offspring, your seed, your offspring will be at war, at enmity with the offspring of the woman. The proto-evangelium, the one coming from the seed of the woman, the offspring of the woman, will crush your head, crush the dragon's head. You will bruise his heel." Koit, that's the entire Bible. If we don't get that right, we don't understand anything else we're reading. That's where the whole Nephilim come in. That's where the offspring of the woman, which is prophesied through the biblical prophetic narrative, all throughout Scripture, it's prophesied. One coming, where he'll be born. Bethlehem. It's all there. How he will die. Read Isaiah 53. Read Psalm 22? Yeah. Read that. Blow your mind. Written, before crucifixion was even invented. It's all there. They've pierced my hands and feet. When you look at his name, right, in Hebrew, it's bizarre. Behold the nail in the hand. It's just like, you can't make this stuff up. But most people don't know this because they're not taught. And we have this thing, which is religion and not relationship. And once a person understands Genesis 3:15, then everything opens up, because the seed of the woman begins to manifest with Abraham thousands of years ago. Abraham is tapped out by the pre-incarnate Christ, who visits him with two angels. And he sits down with Abraham and says, "Out of your seed, all the nations of the world will be blessed." Well, Abraham's 90 years old, and so is Sarah at this point. How's that going to happen? And they were regenerated, in my opinion. I got this from the late Chuck Missler. They were regenerated because when Abraham takes Sarah down to Egypt because of the famine, Pharaoh takes her into his concubines, as one of his concubines. You don't do that with a 90-year-old woman. That ain't going to happen.
Unless you've got some sort of weird fetish, yeah.
There's some weird thing going on, and that's not the case here. So Sarah, they both become regenerated, in my opinion, and I got that from Chuck Missler, and the rest is history. Out of Sarah's loins, this is the birth of Israel. And the pre-incarnate Christ says to Abraham, this is where the Nephilim come in, "You're going to go down to Egypt for 400 years until the sin of the Amorites comes to its fullness, and then I'm going to bring you out," which is exactly what happens. So on the field of battle in Canaan, you've got the Nephilim tribe, the seed of the dragon, and you've got the children of Israel, the seed of the woman. It's like, oh my gosh, it's mind-boggling. And most people have no idea what they're looking at. All goes back to Genesis 3:15. Hats off to elder brother Gary Stearman for illuminating that to me over a decade ago, which changed my life yet again. The dragon, now get this is Good Friday, so this is really applicable because we're here. Jesus hangs on the cross. The dragon, Satan, never figured that this was going to be checkmate, that this was going to completely crush his head. He didn't understand that. Why? Because you can't kill God, can you? How can you kill God? You can't kill God. Jesus is fully God and fully man. And just look at all the stuff he did. So he's fully God, fully man. And the dragon's going, well, he's going to come down. There's no way you can kill him. So, we're just going to have some fun here and blah, blah, blah. That's not what happens. He dies. God dies. The body is in the tomb. Get this. The spirit and the soul go down to the lower parts of the earth, Tartarus. Guess who's there? The fallen angels that committed fornication with human women back in Genesis 6. Koit, what we're talking about, this is the deep end of the pool. And you can go to church for 20 years and never hear this, but that's the whole game. That's everything. And then he reunites with his body. Welcome to the Shroud of Turin. And he rises from the dead.
Yeah.
And that is the prototype. It says in scripture in Colossians, which is just a city. So Paul's writing to the people in the city called Kolos in Greece. And it says he is the head of the body. Jesus is the head of the body, the firstborn from the dead. Let's say it again. Jesus is the head of the body of the church. He is the beginning. Jesus is the head of the body, the church, the believers. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he may be preeminent in all things. That is the most cosmic event in the entire history of the universe. This is it, because God dies. God becomes death. He embraces it. But when he does that, he topples the dragon's kingdom, and he gives an opening for all mankind to come back to him, to come back to the Lord, to come back to God. And if it was any more difficult than just saying, come into my life, it's just, nobody would do it. Eastern mysticism, I have to have my third eye open. I have to meditate 3 hours a day. I have to abstain from meat, fish, and eggs and be celibate and all this stuff. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. Nowhere. There is no priesthood in the New Testament, folks, in case you were wondering. There is no mandate to become celibate for all you Catholics out there. No mandate. That's not in there, okay? And to abstain from this or abstain from that, it's not in there. It's just real simple. Come to me, and I will give you peace. That's the bottom line. So that happened to me 44 years ago, and everything that we write about stems from Genesis 3:15 and the Nephilim. That's
stems from that point, yeah. You mentioned something, a word play earlier. It's not religion, it's relationship, right? And do you think that the downfall of the West, shall we put it that way, or at least the decline in the West, is because we've lost touch with both religion and relationship? You'd have thought relationship is your primary thing, yeah? Religion is the man-made bit underneath. But we seem to have, as families, lost that relationship link and the religious link. Is that what is the downfall?
Well, yes, because if there is no absolute truth, then what do you hang your hat on? I mean, if there's nothing that's absolute here. I mean, I was on a show with a guy. I was interviewing him, and I'm not going to disparage him and tell you where he was from or anything like that. But I'll just say this: we got into this conversation, and he was saying, and this guy was a rabbi.
Okay.
And he was saying, well, there's no such thing as sin. And all I did was throw the 10 Commandments back at him. I just said, okay, how do you relate to thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder? Is that a sin? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Is that a sin? And he was dead silent because he's a rabbi and he knows that that's sin. You just don't do that. We're not all that stuff is bad. We're not going to go there. Okay. that doesn't mean that if we do those things, we're not forgiven, because God forgives us. The steadfast love of the Lord is new every morning. And it is every single morning. That's the way it works. So he loves you. He loves me. He loves all mankind. He wants all of us to come back to him. But you get all this crazy stuff that sits in the way. So to answer your question, it's complex. When the Beatles came in and they ushered in Eastern mysticism in the 60s, that changed the culture big time. That changed the culture. Now there was something. Look, when I went down to get to the guru to get my third eye open, I told my parents what they were doing, what I was about to do. There was no, there was no rebuttal. There was no, well, have you ever thought about this? Nothing. They had no answer to anything. And it would be another, 10 years, whatever, before I would become a Christian, go back to my biblical roots, which I really didn't have. I had never read the Bible until I was 30, and became born again and spirit filled. And that became, I call it the guidebook of a supernatural, Koit, because that's really what it is. Bible just means book. What I call it is the guidebook of a supernatural, because that's what it does. It tells you how to interact. It tells you not to interact. It shows you what to do, what not to do. It's an amazing book, but it takes time, and you're not going to get it in the next 10 minutes. And there's the prerequisite for really understanding it is being born again and spirit filled. Without being spirit-filled, you can read that thing if a cow's come home, and it won't open for you. It will not open for you. So it's in one sense, it's extremely mystical. Now, when I use that word mystical, I'm not talking about, looking at a crystal ball or scrying or anything like that. It's mystical because I don't understand how it works. All I know is I'm spirit-filled. The Holy Spirit indwells in me. He'll lead me and guide me, teach me all things. And when I open that book, it's he that illuminates it. Not me. It's beyond my understanding. And yet I understand with my rational human mind. It's complex.
It is complex. I can understand everything you're saying there. I can't run a line on what you say 100%, only because I'm not religious per se. So it's hard for me to sort of sit in your mindset, but I understand what you're getting at. So all of that. And it was interesting earlier you said God is dead or God dies. Isn't that an interesting thing? That would be like, if you had a movie trailer, that would be the opening of it, wouldn't it? God dies.
Well, yeah. Nobody understands it. His mother doesn't get it. All the apostles don't get it. Nobody gets what the dragon doesn't get it. Nobody gets it. He's dead. Why didn't he do something? He allows it to happen. This is why when you go to the day before, when he's in Gethsemane and he's weeping and sweating drops of blood, because he knows what's about to happen, and he's going to go there and do it anyway for us. It's the most cosmic love story you could possibly ever imagine. It's mind-boggling. And I understand from a human finite perspective, but I know one day when I'm translated and I'm seeing him as he really is, then I'm going to get another download, and that'll just be unbelievable.
Here's the thing, right? Are you looking forward to that moment, or do you just put it in the back of your mind thinking it'll come at some stage?
No, yes and no. There's a tension. There's a tension as being a believer. There's this ongoing tension. Knowing that to be absent from the body is to be present from the Lord. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Knowing that's scriptural. That's from the guidebook of the supernatural. So there's a tension. And yet my hand is on the plow. Why? He's given me stuff to do here. I'm on a show with Koit. I don't know how many people I might influence.
Correct.
What we're talking about. And I'm not beating people over the head with this stuff. There's no condemnation. No one's, we're not going there, right? We're talking about this is what happens. This is, if you say this, he will come in and he'll sup with you. He will change your life. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
not.
no, you're not beating anyone over the head. Look, I came to you and I seek understanding. And if you can impart wisdom on me and to others, then great. That's all I ask for. So yeah, is that a job that you've been sent here to do? Is that what you believe?
That's the 13 books and the 30 films. Absolutely. That's, I'm a professional musician. If you go to my YouTube channel, we posted this today. It's high art and it's beautiful. And we've had a lot of really nice comments, and it's just one of those songs, and it's very apropos.
What do you play?
Piano. I'm a classically trained pianist.
Cool. I can play piano a little bit, but I write and record my own music as well. You won't have seen it, but I do a lot of well-known music. And I'm going to get into some symphonic stuff soon. I've just bought a new plug-in set, so I'm looking forward to doing all that.
What did you get? What's your plug-in?
I bought the East-West entire orchestra, the composer cloud, so I could do everything. Yeah, but it's expensive if you buy them individually, but if you do the composer cloud, it's not that bad, and it was on a discount, so I thought, well, look, for a year for $150, that ain't bad, and I get everything.
It's great. I have some of the East-West stuff in my computer too, and I composed this oratorio, full-blown orchestral. I did everything on the keyboard, and you can't tell unless you're really trained. You can't tell. It was full choir with solo elements. I mean, it was this whole 45-minute deal. That's my sort of like my.
That's your jam. Yeah, it's mind blowing when you turn on those plugins. I couldn't believe it how awesome it was. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing it. Next week onwards, I'm going to be composing, so I look forward to that.
Good for you. Great. I'd love to hear some stuff.
When I'm done, I will definitely send you some pieces, but it's more going to be like symphonic rock, so it'll be like
cool,
metal guitars and some singing and opera and stuff like that. So that's what I'll be into, but we'll see.
Very cool.
Let's dive straight into the Nephilim side of things, because I know you're well known for the Nephilim stuff. So can we get into, and I know you've partially mentioned them already, but who or what are they? We'll start there. And what do they look like and things like that, and then we'll go on from there.
Okay, Genesis 3:15, seed of a dragon at war, seed, offspring with the woman, right? 3 chapters later, Genesis 6, what do you think happens? The dragon comes down, sends 200 watcher angels, Book of Enoch, in the days of Jared on Mount Hermon, which I've been to, by the way, unbelievable place. And the 200 watcher angels take wives, plural, from whomever they choose. They go into them as a sexual union, and the offspring is the Nephilim. Fallen angels, human women, procreating, creating an offspring known as the Nephilim. Half fallen angel, half human women, but half human. But guess what? There's no soul. They have no soul. There's a spirit that's there, and there's a body, but there's no soul. This is why they have a nefarious agenda. They are cannibalistic. They are sexually deviant to the point where we won't go into some of the details. The fallen angels are also messing with the animal kingdom, creating chimeras. This is why the flood happens and only 8 people get on board. Noah and his sons and their sons' wives. And they're pure in all their generations. No one's getting on that ark that's contaminated with the Nephilim seed. Nobody is, in my opinion. Other researchers will differ on that, but no way. There's a second incursion. The fallen angels come back and do it again. Now, they almost succeed the first time because only 8 people are saved on that ark. The second time, and the third time, and the fourth time, and the fifth time. Look, when Moses shows up, all right, in Egypt, there's a full-blown occult paradigm in operation. Full-blown. This is business as usual. It's thousands of years after the flood. And here we are in Egypt, full-blown occult paradigm in operation. And then, God brings Moses and Aaron in, and that's when everything begins to change. The Nephilim are there in the promised land when Joshua and Caleb go in. And there are many different tribes, the Zanzumim, the buzzing ones, the Emims, the Anakim, the long necks, the Nephilim, the Rephaim, the Horites, the Perizzites. All these names connote, in my opinion, different genetic characteristics. Sometimes there were 6 fingers, 6 toes, red hair. They were giants. Other times, elongated skulls, like what we see here in the background. There was a diaspora of Nephilim tribes that left the Levant, left the Promised Land, fled the Promised Land. How do we know? Procopius finds a stele in North Africa. And on that stele is written in Proto-Phoenician, I believe, that we are they who fled from the face of Joshua the robber, the son of Nun. What the heck is that doing in North Africa? They fled. The Nephilim tribes fled, and they came over here. They were here in the New World, well in advance of Columbus. They came up all through Europe, Sardinia, let me see, Gozo, Malta, Sardinia, Sicily, and then into the Balearics, all that stuff in the Mediterranean, up into Spain, up into Portugal, into France, into the UK, and the jumping off part was Ireland.
Now, I have a couple of questions regarding this. First off, and I'm sure you'll have been asked this millions of times, but if it's male fallen angels with female women, does it work the other way around with female fallen angels and male humans?
As far as we know, there are no female angels. As far as we know, there doesn't seem to be any, but we don't know for sure. But it doesn't seem like there's any female angels.
There's none mentioned anywhere or anything you've come across?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Nothing. And this is why when the angels saw the women, that they were beautiful, they lusted after them. This is the whole problem. And they took wives. And this starts the whole Nephilim conundrum, which is the nexus of what I do. You know?
Were all the Nephilim offspring and all that stuff, were they all giants, or were they different varieties?
I think there's different genetic characteristics which are embedded in their name, like the Zanzamim, the buzzing ones, the Anakim, the long necks.
I've not heard of these buzzing ones. What's that about?
Well, the way they would, we don't have a vocalization of it, but perhaps they sounded like millions of buzzing bees. Perhaps, we don't know. Conjecture on my part, but that's what they were called. The Anakim, the long necks. What does that mean?
So, I don't know.
our work on the elongated skulls in Peru, was groundbreaking. Thank you, Brian Forrester. Thank you, Senior Juan at the Paracas.
Is that an actual real one? It's not a mold or anything?
No, it's a model, but it's 1-to-1.
That's incredible, isn't it?
It's all wrong. Completely 100% different than the morphology of what we have. There's no sagittal suture. These are sutures here. Sagittal suture.
That's right.
Up there. Look at the orbits are 20 to 25% larger than a normal human being. The skull is greatly elongated. It doesn't look anything like a human being. This is the work of Rick Woodward. The kicker, in my opinion, is right here. This is the foramen magnum. Now, this white part was a clay mold. This to hold the dowel. Okay. But normally, all the spinal column would attach here. Then all the cabling that's in the spinal column would go up into the brain. Well, okay. So this white part is the clay to hold the dowel. So this whole thing is open. The problem is the foramen magnum is all the way at the back of a skull. See that? All the way up. Should be here.
Right in the middle, yeah.
The center. It's not. And you can cradle headboard till the cows come home. You cannot move the foramen magnum. This is why in our film, which is On the Trail of a Nephilim, and shameless plug, you can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net. It is number 6 in the On the Trail series, the complete DNA results, and we show this. You cannot. We've got surgeons and medical doctors and chiropractors and archaeologists, anthropologists, chiropractors, a whole bevy of people coming on the record stating that you cannot move the foramen magnum. This is genetic. We are looking at some sort of genetic anomaly, which is exactly what it is. And we did the DNA testing. We were the first people on the planet to ever do the DNA testing. Okay, UCLA claimed to have done it, but when asked, they just went silent because they didn't test elongated skulls. We did. We were
amazing.
Dive on it.
How many of those are there?
These elongated skulls?
Yeah.
Thousands.
So it's not like just a single anomaly then, is it? Like just a random birth defect. It is a whole race then.
And Koit, you got to understand something, that these Paracas people come over in the window of time where the conquest of Canaan happens 3,500 years ago. That's when they show up. Completely different from any other and indigenous peoples. And our DNA proved that they came from the Levant, the Middle East, Eastern Europe. And I'm not making this stuff up. I mean,
Well, no, because they exist, don't they? They're there. That's the proof.
Exist, and the DNA is not lying.
Yeah.
But the academics don't like that because it points back to something that they don't want to talk about.
Correct. Now, here's the thing, and I know you'll have heard this before, whether it is what you say is as in angels, or is it like an alien race or whatever that's an extraterrestrial? Either way, why isn't this sort of stuff spoken about all the time and investigated? Why are they conveniently hiding it all away?
Well, they are and they're not. They're hiding it on some level. Things are trickling out in the UFO community with Commander David Fravor, Luis Elizondo, Nick Pope, Christopher Mellon, David Grush, and others coming on the record stating that we've got crash discs, we've got biologics, we've got the bodies, we've been back engineering this stuff. They're here, blah, blah, blah. They're not our space brothers, in my opinion. They are the fallen angels masquerading as such. Jesus warns us, men faint from fear from what is coming upon the earth. What does that mean? I'll say it again. Prophecy 2,000 years ago. In the latter days, men will faint from fear from what is coming upon the earth. So what's that? What would cause mankind to faint from fear? You tell me. Upon the earth, not from it, coming down.
Yeah.
Paul tells us that the dragon comes with all signs and lying wonders. I mean, it's all there in the guidebook of the supernatural. Everything I'm saying is but you've got to be able to decipher it. And it takes years to do that. You're not going to get it in 10 minutes, which is why someone like me gives you the shorthand version, gives you the cliff notes, so you can whet your appetite and understand that, wait a minute, something's going on here.
You're the translator, aren't you?
Well, on some level, yeah. I mean, for what's going on. There's something in Christian circles called the rapture of a church. The guidebook of the supernatural says this, that the Lord himself will descend from heaven. That's Jesus coming down with a shout, with the voice of the archangel and the trump of God. The dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds, and so shall we evermore be with the Lord. Let's walk through that. It's called the rapture of the church. Something's going to happen. Do we have precedent for that? Absolutely. When the prophet Elijah is translated into heaven, his servant Elijah watches him go up. He doesn't disappear, he goes up. When Jesus ascends into heaven, the disciples, at least 11 of them, and I believe Mary Magdalene and Mary, his mother, was there, and who knows how many other people are gathered because they know something's up. So Jesus goes up and they watch him go up. He doesn't vanish, does he? When the two witnesses, this is future, in the book of Revelation, they're killed and their bodies lay on the streets of Jerusalem, they're resurrected after 3 days. The entire world, because of the global satellite system, watches the two witnesses go up. When the rapture of the church, this is called the coming great deception. This is what Jesus is talking about, in my opinion. Before I hit the punchline, in Fatima, 1917, 70,000 people are in the field. They're waiting for some sign that they were told was going to happen. It's been raining all morning. Everybody's sopping wet. Suddenly, the clouds part. There's the sun. But then a cloud moves in front of the sun, and out of that cloud comes a dull, silver, spinning disc, which falls to the ground, goes back up into the cloud, does this 3 different times. How do we know this? Eyewitness testimony. Right after the event, sitting down with Father Fiera, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. Well, there's no words in 1917 in the lexicon for flying saucer or UFO. So they're saying in their verbiage, in their grid system, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. Well, what's that? So the rapture of a church is an event that happens. We know that. Now, a lot of people don't believe that, but Noah is a type of rapture. So before Noah, before the judgment, before the flood, Noah is sealed into the ark by God himself. Before Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed, and that's a Nephilim stronghold, by the way. That's why God reacts that way. They get Lot out. That's a type of the rapture. So here it is. This is the kicker. The rapture of the church happens. Millions of people all over the world go up into a cloud. Okay? Go up into a cloud. And then out of the cloud comes this. and there's your great deception. I heard this, Koit, let me finish.
Yeah, go for it.
I heard this 50 years ago when I was in the New Age. 50 years ago. I wasn't born again. I was in the New Age, and I heard from other people in the New Age that the Space Brothers were going to come, and they were going to take those who weren't quite ready for the paradigm shift in consciousness, for the next elevation in human evolution, off-world, so they could, get caught up to speed. I heard that 50 years ago. And there's a saying I coined, we go up, they show up. We go up, they come down. We go up in the rapture, whole planet sees it, right? Out of the cloud comes the UFO. Welcome to the Great Deception. Welcome to the Great Deception.
Right, let me see if I can parse this correctly based on what you've said. Are then you indicating or suggesting that UFO stroke aliens are demonic in any way? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
They're fallen angels. Okay, cool. I thought, make sure I'm on the right page. Yeah, I've heard that train of thought before, and who am I to question or argue? I don't know. It's interesting to, explore both scenarios. Is it just extraterrestrials? Is it what you're suggesting? Either way, it can be quite frightening. Yeah. Amazing topic. Let's get back to the Nephilim in themselves. Why 6 fingers on each hand? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, because you're mixing the seed, and the dragon can't get it right. And this is why in modernity, you've got the eyes are the windows to the soul, right here. Mm-hmm. The eyes are the windows to the soul. So this is why the black-eyed kids, right? Because the dragon, Satan, can't create a soul. This is why the grays have what? The big
the black lenses, yeah.
Right? This is why the hybrids wear wraparound sunglasses, right? This is why the men in black, the wraparound sunglasses, because they're soulless. There's no soul there. And the eyes give it away. The dragon cannot get the eyes correct. He can't get it. He can't make it work because there's no soul. They're in a fixed state. Koit, these entities are in a fixed state. Boom. They have one thing in mind. The hybrids think only one thing, having sex as much as possible to create more hybrids. It's like a hive mentality. How do we know that? We sat down with Al Matthews, who had an encounter with a hybrid being, a hybrid woman. How do I know that? Because we're doing a thing called Supernatural Confrontations, where this guy in Norway with his wife, beautiful summer morning, they're out shopping in a market, and all of a sudden, they're in a vegetable area, like 50, 40 feet away, whatever. This woman appears. She's wearing a dress that's like see-through. He's never seen any type of a dress like this before. She doesn't walk down the aisle. She floats down the aisle in a serpentine way. Feet aren't moving. She just comes down like this.
Oh, she's very weird.
5 feet in front of him. His wife at this point is hiding, terrified, behind the vegetable stand. Terrified. He looks at her, and before he can say a word, she's looking at him with this unmitigated hate. She lifts up her dress. She's not wearing any underwear. Okay? He looks away like this. Then he remembers, rebuke first and ask questions later. And he looks at her and he goes, the Lord rebuke you, right? The Lord Jesus rebuke you. Well, Koit, all of a sudden, she's here. In a split second, she's down at the end of the aisle, 40 feet away, just bam, just like that, split second. She glares at him one more time and then vanishes, just like that. Now, that's a hybrid. That's a modern-day Nephilim. Daniel chapter 2, verse 43. Daniel was a prophet. It's in the Old Testament. See, this is just a guidebook. This is an address. If you want to go look it up yourself, here's the address. I live on 24, Good Bar Street. That's an address. I'm just giving you an address.
Sure.
Daniel chapter 2, verse 43 says, their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Whose seed? Who are they? And once again, Genesis 3:15 goes right back to the seed, the offspring. Their offspring will mingle with the offspring. It's the seed war. Same thing going on. And that book is sealed until the time of the end, which is where we are now. And the angel gives Daniel a clue. Now, how is this possible? Thousands of years ago. And he says this, Daniel, seal up the words to the book. The book's going to be sealed. People will read it. They won't understand it until the time of the end. And this is what the time of the end is going to look like. Men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth, and knowledge will increase. You go back 2,000, 2,500 years, it's flatlined until Gutenberg's printing press. Nothing changes. It's an agrarian economy. Fastest way to move around is a ship or a horse, and you write with pen and ink. Gutenberg changes all that. Now you don't need smelling monks in a scriptorium, painstakingly copying everything on vellum. You don't need it. Now the printing press, boom, 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 boom. For the first time in history, the common man can read. That's the first blip. Then from there, that's the 1600s. From there, it goes in slowly and it starts to rise. When you get to the Industrial Revolution, that's where it just goes through the roof. And now in modernity, knowledge increases every 6 months. And as we're speaking, men and women run to and fro over the face of the earth via airplanes, helicopters, whatever. It's happening. So that book is unsealed. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Who are they? I mean, you realize the cosmic implications there? Their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Who are they? They're not men. So it only leaves one alternative. We're not talking about space brothers from Zeta Reticuli or Epsilon Eridani. We're looking at the fallen ones. Be like, Jesus warns us, it'll be like the days of Noah when he returns. Well, if you don't know what the days of Noah, then that falls of its own weight, means nothing. But if we know that the days of Noah have one peculiarity, and that is the presence of who? The Nephilim. Who are the Nephilim? The unholy progeny between fallen angels and human women, creating a hybrid being. We're in the days of Noah, Koit. They're right here. They're walking amongst us, Dr. David Jacobs, title of his book. They're here. They're walking amongst us. And do I want to see one? I've had no desire to.
I don't blame you. It's disconcerting. Here's a question for you then. What is their ultimate aim or goal? Do they have one as a collective hive?
As a collective hive, yes, to create as many hybrids as they possibly can because they're outnumbered and they know a war is coming. So they're trying to
and is that then just ultimately a war of good versus evil, or is it just species versus different species?
No, it's good versus evil. And read Revelation 19 when you're done. Write that down. Read Revelation 19. Behold, I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is faithful and true. With justice he judges and makes war. His eyes are like flaming fire. On his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one but he himself knows. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and he is called the Word of God. That's Jesus. The armies of heaven rode with him on white horses, dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Out of his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike the nations. He will rule them with a rod of iron. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God. And on his robe and on his side is written, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. That's future when Jesus comes in at the Battle of Armageddon. And that sword that comes out of his mouth, in my opinion, he just stops holding everything together because he holds all things together, which I don't understand either. And everyone just melts. It's like the Wicked Witch of the East. They just melt, which is why the blood goes up to the bridle. There's a lot of Nephilim on the field of battle. There's a lot of very evil people on the field of battle. We're not there lopping heads off of orcs. We're watching out of Jesus's mouth this sharp sword, and he basically says, "You're undone," and they just collapse. He just undoes them. He's had it up to here. He gets tired of getting poked in the eye all the time, and that's when he comes back. That's future. I think it might be soon. Am I a date setter? Absolutely not.
No, you shouldn't be, because you don't want to be proved wrong, do you? Like many other people who will have been.
Yeah. When we look at what's going on, and I got to get going here soon, but when we look at what's going on in the Middle East, the Guidebook of a Supernatural, right here, the Guidebook of a Supernatural tells us all about this, everything that's happening in the Middle East. Gaza was a Nephilim stronghold that was never cleared by Joshua and Caleb and the armies of Israel. They never defeated the Nephilim in Gaza. I'm not calling Hamas Nephilim. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not doing it. What I am saying is that spirit which rules that area was never deposed, was never taken over. The land was never cleansed. And so what happened on October 7th is some of the sickest, sexually deviant stuff you can ever possibly imagine. That's the sign of the fallen ones. That's the sign. Those are the fingerprints of the Nephilim, in my opinion. And now all eyes will be north on the Lebanese border. Are we looking at the ancient prophecies of Isaiah 17, which states Damascus is a ruinous heap? Damascus is a play right now. And Israel is already threatened. We will destroy Damascus. And this whole thing with Russia, Turkey, and Iran, those are the three major nations in the Ezekiel 38-39 prophecy. For the first time in all of history that I'm aware of, all three major players are on the same stage. Putin, Erdogan from Turkey, and Raisi from Iran. And Raisi is Shia, and Erdogan is Sunni. They've been at loggerheads for 1,300 years. They're on the same stage together. Why? Because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Who is my enemy? Israel. And just recently, Russia is now in the Golan Heights. I mean, this whole thing is heating up. Prophecy tells us exactly what's about to happen. Could it be Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus? Or is it a combination of Isaiah 17 and also Ezekiel 38, Ezekiel 39? I think it's both. And I'm not saying we're there because we're not there, but it's pointing in that direction.
It's pointing in that direction. I agree with you, by the way. Yeah, I don't like where it's all heading in the world at the moment.
I'm not a fan.
No, neither am I. I know you've got to head off soon, so we're just going to quickly enter the Koit zone, which is just some random questions. It tells us more about your personality than your research or anything, so just bear with me. Some are strange questions, some are decent. So here we go. We are now entering the Koit zone. Koit zone! First question. What's the oldest pair of shoes you own, and how old are they?
Oh, wow. Well, everything got burned out in the fire. Okay, so that's
fair.
2019. But I had a pair of all worn, just really great shoes, and I go running on the beach. So I left them. Big mistake. I left them on the seawall last week. I came back and somebody had stolen them. They had holes in them. They were all funky and stuff. They were probably 6 years old. Right.
Yeah, but on a plus side, I've now got a new pair of running shoes, so they're really good. What was your favourite cartoon as a kid?
Oh, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yes, I like them. We got those over here as well. That's quite cool. What insect annoys you the most?
Oh, scorpion. We have scorpions here. Yeah.
You've been bitten?
Scorpions. I've never been bitten, thank God, but they, nothing to mess with.
Yeah. We don't have them here, so I'm glad of that. But yeah, they don't inspire joy in me. Are you a Star Wars fan?
I am. I saw the original Star Wars.
Excellent stuff.
I've switched it. My paradigm has switched. When I first saw Star Wars, yeah, we're not alone. They're out there. Now I'll throw a curveball at you. Mm-hmm. What if we're in a holographic universe?
It's one I've pondered a lot. Yeah.
Right? What if this whole thing is just a holographic universe, which is what I think it is?
I also think that it's a big matrix we're in of some variety, and then it opens up the bigger questions: who's running in it, why, and blah blah blah. And then where did they come from, and etc. etc. It's a never-ending thing. Is there a food that you really detest?
Oh my gosh, I would say I cannot eat peas in their natural state. I cannot eat if you put them with something like in rice. I can do that, but a plate of peas, no way. I'll gag.
Do you know what the best way to eat a pea is? Just swallow it and don't think of it. That's what I do on a spoon with some gravy. It's gone. You don't chew it. That's the best way.
It's all good.
Yeah. What thing, project, happening, or event brought about the most proud feeling you've ever had?
The most proud feeling I've ever had?
Of something, or one of your creations.
Well, when Richard Shaw, my late business partner, and I received an award for the film that we did on UFOs, that was just pretty cool. Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, my mentor, giving me an honorary doctorate. And when he put that, it's like a robe that he puts over you, a sash. And I realized he was passing the torch. That's the most prolific point in my whole life. The second one would be the Gold Medallion by Chuck Missler. The third one is receiving the awards for the films.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah, I always like those points in people's life, like I said, where you're nudged slightly, and I love that, so thank you. You get an hour to converse with any dead person of your choosing from history. Who are you resurrecting for that hour?
Oh, immediately Jesus of Nazareth. Are you kidding me? But he's already resurrected. He's already resurrected, so, that's really an unfair statement.
Yeah.
The next guy in line would be Paul the Apostle for me. I would love to sit down and go, why didn't you write a paragraph here? Why didn't you give us more? What was this like? What was that like? And a close second to Paul would be Peter, because Peter's with him from the beginning. What was it like? What was it really like? Because, see, we have this false concept of Jesus, and Jesus is always messing with the disciples, always. I'll give you just one example. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he tells Peter, comes up to him all frantic. We got to pay our taxes. We got to pay our taxes. His wife, Peter's married, got to pay his taxes. So Jesus goes, okay, well, take your net and go down to the sea, cast your net in, and when you get a fish, open its mouth, you'll see a gold coin there. Go pay your taxes and my taxes. So it's like, well, Peter's been with him for a long time, since the beginning. So he's learned, no matter how ridiculous it sounds, I'm going to do this. So this is not written in the guidebook of a supernatural, the Bible, but this is conjecture. I don't think Peter goes down alone and does this. Maybe he takes John, or Nathaniel, who knows? But he's taking maybe a couple of guys. So they're going, they're talking. It's like, you really think this is going to work? That's what the master said. So we're going to throw the net in. We're going to catch a fish. And it's going to have a gold coin. You realize how crazy that is? Yeah, but he rose Lazarus from the dead last week. Okay. So they go in, they cast the net out, and they reel the fish in, and the fish has the gold coins. Now, do you think they're dropping to their knees and looking real pious? No. They're jumping around on the shores of that beach, laughing hysterically. They can't even believe it. I mean, if you and I were there, we'd be going, oh my God, let's cast it out again. Maybe we'll catch another one. Right? That's who he is. And all that's, I'll give you one more. All that's erased from the guidebook. It's right there, but it's not taught that way. And so people don't understand. When Jesus rises from the dead, 3 days later, the disciples are up in the upper room. We all know the story. We've seen pictures, right? All this crazy stuff. They're freaked out because they think they're next. The master is gone. They don't understand. No one understands the cross. No one understands the death of Jesus. God dies. No one gets that. No one gets it. So there's a knock. Jesus shows up there, but he doesn't do it the way you and I would do it. He doesn't come to the door and go, hey guys, I know this sounds really weird, but it's me, it's Jesus. I just rose from the dead. I want to come in and see it. Don't be alarmed. I'm not a ghost. I'll explain it to you. Right? Now that's what you and I would do, right? It's not what he does. It's not what he does. He just barges through the wall, comes in, and goes, ta-da! Here I am. And they all go, oh my God, a ghost. They're totally freaked out. That's not funny. Are you kidding me? That is so deliberate. That is in your face. He knows the reaction, and he's goofing on them. That's what he's doing. He's pulling a prank, and he's cracking up, and he just can't wait to do it. And then they all gather around and touch me. I'm not a ghost. And then he says something again. When you've never heard it this way, I know you have. You've never heard it. The Gospels taught this way. Then he says something to the guys. Hey, what do you guys got to eat? I'm like really hungry. Now, what's not written in the text, I've been laying in this thing for 3 days. I'm really famished. What do you guys got to eat? Total guy thing, right? What do you got to eat? He sits down and eats with them. And they're all like, they can't believe what they're saying. That's who he really is. That's who he is. If you did have him or your two other options as your hour, you'd need a notebook, and you'd need a lot of questions. You need a lot of ink in your pen because you're going to have a lot of answers. On a scale of warm bread to burnt bread, how do you like your toast? Oh, not burnt. Lightly browned, so the butter will melt. Thank you. Yes. What's your favorite cake? Cake? Yeah. Oh, the cake my wife makes, Peggy makes.
And what is it?
Blueberry lemon cake. That's to die for. It is unbelievable. It's practically its own food group. It really is. It's
There you are,
amazing.
Tiff. When you're listening to this, there's one for you. Blueberry lemon. You can make that for yourself. You'll love that. It's got glowing recommendations here from LA. Tell us a story of something silly or dangerous you did when you were a kid. Doesn't have to be long. It can be a small one because I know we got limited time.
Something silly or dangerous.
Yeah.
Wow. Nothing really is coming to mind. I know there's something there, but it's like I'm like fast forwarding, and I'm not. Nothing is like.
You have to ignore all the illegal stuff you've done as well, don't you?
Yeah, that's true too.
Never mind. If nothing's coming to mind, that's fine. We'll move on. Keep it in the back. Does a watched pot never boil?
We'll never know.
Well, we will never know because we're not watching it right now. But two more here. Close friends of yours, what 3 words would you think they would use to describe you?
Intense, humorous, passionate.
All good things, really. The intense you might be a bit wary of, but fair play. Humorous is always a good one. Well played on that. And on that note, what's the funniest thing you've ever seen?
The funniest thing I've ever seen?
Ever seen, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Not necessarily heard, but what you've seen.
I know I've completely cracked up, lost it over things. I'm just trying to think what it would be. The funniest thing. Well, I mean, it's, nothing is coming to mind, but we have this goofy dog. His name is Mr. Wrinkles. Okay. And he does something called a zoomie. This isn't the funniest thing, but it's right up there. He does this thing called a zoomie. So he'll come running. He's a big dog. He's like 80 pounds. He'll come running right at you like this. And at the last second, he veers to one side or the other. And then we have these grasses that were about 4 feet high. So he does a zoomie. He goes like this. He's zooming and he jumps into the grass and completely disappears. And then you see the grass start to shake like this.
And then a velociraptor comes out. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it looks like. And then he comes barreling out again. I mean, when you see that, he's so funny.
I do like that dog behavior. I love dogs. They are amazing. Fair play. Okay, that is the end of the Koit Zone. I will ask you one more question before we wrap this up. What are you currently working on?
I'm working on a book called The Rungs on the Ladder of Disclosure. It's about UFOs. I'm over halfway done. It starts off with rung number 1, which is Commander David Fravor on Tucker Carlson show, 2017, saying that I saw this thing. It was not from this earth. And right now, the top rung right now is Admiral Ryder stating on the record that there's nothing to see here. We've examined everything and it's blah, 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 blah. The rung before that is David Grush saying that we have biologics, they're non-human. So I'm working on it every day. Hope to have it out in the next couple of months. We'll see what happens.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you ever so much for your time.
Thanks,
you've done amazing things. I've loved hearing you on all your things, and you've helped me today. So thank you ever so much for that. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Just show our website to the folks and check it out.
Well, on that basis, yeah, check out the descriptions. Check out all the links in the descriptions now. Everything will be there for you. Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Live long and prosper.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.